As sediment accumulates in a reservoir, the capacity of that reservoir decreases to meet various demands and beneficial uses, such as for water supply and hydropower generation.
Reservoir sedimentation is a chronic issue. It will affect all reservoirs sooner or later, simply a matter of time. In some cases that may be a few decades, in some cases it may be hundreds or thousands of years.
The sedimentation is affecting the project benefits for the nation's reservoirs. It's by filling up these reservoirs gradually over time, reducing the storage capacity, impairing outlets, impairing boat ramps, marinas, impairing space for recreation. And we need to look at ways to better manage sediment over the future, more sustainably.
The sedimentation rate that we see in the reservoirs is driven by, one, the weather patterns, two, the geography associated with that reservoir. When we have reservoirs in areas that have high rainfall, steep mountain valleys, a high amount of sediment available to come run off the watershed, all of those things contribute to high loads that can result in accelerated loss of storage volume.
All the structures to some extent were anticipated to catch and store sediment coming into the reservoirs. And so that is as intended. The problems have come in where we've reached that 100 years now, or 50 years. There was just no plan what to do after that storage space has filled.
As sediment accumulates in the reservoir, it displaces the water storage in the reservoir. So instead of having a lake full of water, you have a lake full of mud.
So sediments deposit throughout the reservoirs. Coarse sediments deposit the upstream end, fine sediments deposit further on down.
And then moving forward in time, sediment can eventually reach pieces of infrastructure at the dam itself, such as water intakes and hydropower penstocks, and adversely affect those features if they're not designed to pass both sediment and debris downstream.
Sediment is an important part of river systems, and so if you trap the sediment in a reservoir, then the downstream channel doesn't have the sediment. What you release is clear of sediment, we call that hungry water, and it can scour then the sediment up from the bed and the banks of the channel downstream. Also, as sediment deposits in the reservoir, it can also deposit in the river channel upstream of the reservoir.
What can happen is you start forming a delta in the upstream part of your reservoir. That delta can actually progress, in a sense, upstream, and it can, in some cases, create flooding problems where there were not flooding problems before.
Hydropower production and maximum efficiency is designed on running cool, clean water through hydropower turbines. As we collect sediment in reservoirs, we run the risk of ingesting sand, silt into those hydropower facilities. That sediment is highly erosive.
Especially sand and gravel, and sand and gravel can ruin a turbine in a matter of hours, and that can take months to repair. So if we start getting sediment through the penstocks, it can abrade all that facility and render that useless.
The general strategy to sustainably manage reservoir sediment is to restore sediment continuity in the river system, which means the amount of sediment and when it comes in is equal to the amount that needs to go out, similar timing prior to when the facility was built.
There are three basic categories of ways to manage sediment in reservoirs. The first is to prevent the sediment from coming into the reservoir in the first place. That can be bank stabilization, bank protection upstream, better farming practices, anything that can be done to prevent erosion in the upstream watershed. The second method is to prevent the sediment from depositing in the reservoir. And there can be tunnels or other ways to bypass the sediment around the reservoir, or to pass it through the reservoir before it deposits. And the third basic category of methods is to remove sediment that has already deposited. Things like dredging, things like opening the gates and flushing the sediment through.
As we consider reservoir sedimentation on any site-by-site basis, we evaluate what would, one, be the lowest cost, two, the highest efficiency, three, the action with the lowest impact. But what we need to do is look at a balance or a combination of all the different myriad of methods that are available and come up with the least cost with the greatest retained benefits to that reservoir as an approach for sustainably managing each reservoir.
So implementation of sustainable sediment management solution is certainly not going to happen overnight. It's probably going to take years, maybe decades to implement. If you think about the engineering planning that's involved, the environmental analysis, the permitting, the funding, getting the stakeholders involved, it could take about as long as it did to build some of the dams. We really can't afford to wait until our outlets start plugging with sediment. We've got to start that planning years in advance to get ahead of the crisis that would otherwise be impending.